Since as early as October of 2021, I've been trying to raise the alarm about how the global energy crisis is causing a fertilizer shortage and that spells big trouble for world food security. And I've really been pounding the table saying that this fertilizer shortage is going to be felt particularly hard by people who grow corn. Corn. So in one last desperate attempt to raise the alarm about this year's corn crop, I did what any reasonable man would do.
So I put a kiddie pool in my living room and I filled it with 200 pounds of corn.
What's up, guys? I'm nobody special. And look, I know we're all feeling this food inflation right now. It's hitting every one of us on our grocery bill. Unfortunately, if you came here for good news today, you're not getting any, because a few months from now, our food inflation problem is going to get much, much worse because of this situation that's going on in fertilizer markets, and that's going to hit corn particularly hard. Now, you may be saying to yourself, okay, I don't eat that much corn, no big deal. Well, think again, because corn is used in almost 80% of the food products in grocery stores. It's also one of the main feed grains that's used to feed cows, pigs, and chickens, so this also means your meat prices are going to go up too. And on top of that, corn is also used in a lot of industrial applications like batteries and gasoline, so this fertilizer situation is going to add to inflation woes big time. So the problem, of course, starts with inflation. Since the onset of the unfortunate health situation in 2020, the Federal Reserve has been printing money at breakneck pace. Now, that inflation has resulted in higher energy prices. Energy is a direct input to the price of fertilizer. So now our fertilizer prices have gone up. Now our food is about to get more expensive. Now people are demanding higher wages. Well, higher wages results in more inflation,
which causes more price spikes in energy, which causes fertilizer prices to go up even more, which causes food prices to go up even more, which causes wages to go up even more.
So the fertilizer situation was made a lot worse by this energy crisis this year. You see, the main ingredient in nitrogen fertilizer is natural gas. And with everything that's going on in China and in Eastern Europe right now, natural gas prices have gone through the roof. And that's caused a lot of the fertilizer production in Europe to just outright shut down this year. It's also caused countries like Russia and China to halt exports of fertilizer, which is really constraining global supplies. And on top of that, Hurricane Ida ripped through the United States and the Mississippi Delta and took out a lot of domestic fertilizer production. All that combines to form a very tight fertilizer market this year. Now, with the situation going on in fertilizer last fall, a lot of farmers held off on their fertilizer buys for the year. Now, typically they would have placed those orders last fall, but because prices were so high, a lot of farmers held back and they didn't place those orders.
Now, if you want to know just how bad those fertilizer price increases were, just take a look at this chart. The average cost of fertilizer has increased anywhere from 200 to as much as 300% over the last few months. So back in the fall, when prices were already at historical highs, a lot of those farmers didn't make those purchases, hoping that prices were going to come back down.
Well, those big price declines never materialized. Now the spring is almost here, and the farmers are left with a tough decision. Do we buy at these bloated prices? Do we use less? Or do we maybe change our planting plans and try to plant something else? Now, the reason why corn is particularly affected by the fertilizer situation is because corn cannot take nitrogen out of the air like soybeans can. Corn gets all of its nitrogen from the soil. Well, that means corn needs way more nitrogen fertilizer than the other crops. So this big spike in fertilizer prices is having a magnified impact on the corn crop this year, less so on the other crops. Now, that's causing a couple of things. Number one, it's causing farmers to consider planting soybeans or wheat instead of corn, or it's tempting farmers to apply less fertilizer to their crop this year. That could mean lower crop yields for corn farmers.
And while the farmers are wondering what to plant, you can plant your cursor right over the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Give that baby a smash, and why not subscribe to my channel while you're at it. Now, as far as farmers changing their planting plans for this spring, I've seen mixed results. I've seen plenty of speculation by analysts, such as this article in Bloomberg, calling for a 3.2% reduction in corn acres planted this year and a 5.9% increase in soybean acres this year. Now, that would translate to about 3 million fewer acres of corn planted in the United States. That's about an area the size of the state of Connecticut in lost corn acres this year. And I also saw this article in Zero Hedge quoting an anonymous farm insider saying that it would be virtually impossible for farmers to profitably plant corn this year. saying that the majority of people he was talking to are changing their plans over to soybeans. Now, I've done a little bit of digging locally here in Pennsylvania, and I am yet to find a single farmer who has made any changes to his planting plans this year. Now, these are anecdotal cases, but not one of the farmers in my area that I've talked to has decided to plant soybeans instead of corn. They're going ahead with their normal crop rotation as planned. And I've also seen a lot of articles that are saying that's the case nationwide, that most farmers are sticking with their crop rotation long term and that they're not going to chase the market to try to get a better return this year, because that will have long-term damaging impact on their soil. I am, however, seeing plenty of articles talking about better nitrogen management and about reduced fertilizer application. Many of these articles mentioning that it will be worth it for these farmers to do one less fertilizer application this year and take that hit on yield, because that last bit of fertilizer is no longer economical because they're only going to get 4 or 5 more bushels per acre out of it. So that thesis about the farmers who do plant corn using less fertilizer, it looks like that story is already playing out.
Now, another factor that's having a big impact on corn this year is the South American harvest and this drought that we've had in Brazil and Argentina. Now, Brazil and Argentina are two of the world's biggest corn exporters, and they've been hit by a drought that's really affecting their winter corn harvest. Now, we still don't have all the numbers, but it looks like the corn crop in South America is going to come in much lower than last year. That's going to strain the export market, and it's going to drive more demand into U.S. markets, which means higher prices for U.S. corn. Also affecting corn prices is this situation in Eastern Europe. Now, we don't know what's going to come out of this situation in Ukraine or not, but Ukraine is one of the world's biggest corn exporters. And if things light off in that part of the world, it's definitely going to have an impact on Ukraine's crops this year. It's tough to grow corn when there's tanks rolling across your field.
Now, another thing we're starting to see because of this inflation problem is countries that used to be food exporters are starting to cut back on their food exports in an effort to try to control the inflation in their own borders. In particular, Argentina announced that they're going to put curbs on their exports of corn and wheat. Well, Argentina is one of the biggest corn exporting countries in the world. So on top of that drought that's hitting Argentina right now we have these export curbs that are also going to hurt things. And as we all know, price controls do not work. So the net result is going to be the Argentinian farmers are going to pay the price for this, because they won't be able to sell their grains into the more valuable export markets, but they will still eat the added cost of the higher fuel prices and the higher fertilizer prices. That means a lot of Argentinian farmers are going to get put out of business. Now, on February 10th, the day that this video is being recorded, the Department of Agriculture released their WASDE report, or World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimates. And a lot of analysts and a lot of traders were expecting big reductions in global corn estimates stemming from this fertilizer situation and from the drought in South America. However, when the report came out today, there was only a very, very modest reduction in South American harvest estimates, way below what even conservative estimates were saying, and there was no change to American corn estimates. That caused a lot of traders to totally disregard the WASDE report, because it looks like this is another case of the government understating problems to try to keep this inflation narrative in check. That means the DOA is in absolute denial right now about the effect the fertilizer situation is going to have on agricultural output this year. And that means there is a big shock to the supply-demand system that is not yet factored in or priced into these markets.
So long story short, this mess in energy markets has caused an even bigger mess in fertilizer markets, and that's taken this food inflation problem and has made it a lot worse now that it's affecting our farmers. And corn is particularly vulnerable to that issue. And with all these export curbs going on around the world and farmers making tough decisions, it spells real problems for corn markets. A problem I've now made a little bit worse by buying all this stuff. And if you're curious, you can go back and check out this video that I did on October 25th, the first time I spotted this problem back in October. Guys, I want to thank you for watching, thank you for your time, and until next time, live small and dream big. Hey, that's it. Everybody in the corn pit, come on. Bury them into the corn.